Payers for 4 trips to Queensland. The fight over pop-up bars taking business from local operators. Smothered in smog, the reasons behind China's persistent air pollution problem. And tall order, a look at the new recruits for Australia's one-day side. Good evening, Pamela Medlin with ABC News Sunday. Federal Health Minister Susan Lee has agreed to partly pay back the cost of 4 trips to the Gold Coast, where she owns a luxury apartment. But questions remain about a number of other Gold Coast visits over the past 3 years. Ashlyn McGee reports from Parliament House.
Susan Lee's a frequent visitor to the Sunshine State.
So thank you, and I'm happy to take your questions.
The questions this week have been why she headed to the Gold Coast straight after this press conference to buy luxury apartments. The ministers today apologised and agreed to repay part of the trip's costs. In a statement, she says she's spoken to the Prime Minister and that it does not meet the high standards he expects. She's also agreed to partly pay back 3 other trips to the Gold Coast, where she and her partner own 2 investment properties. But the ABC's uncovered 14 other unexplained trips to the Glitter Strip. As the sun set on the final days of 2013, Ms Lee jetted into the Gold Coast for New Year's, charging taxpayers $655 for the trip. And a year later, after another Gold Coast New Year's, she's charged for her and her partner's flights back to Sydney.
Ms Lee needs to explain what these trips were for. She's made a very great number of trips to the Gold Coast. She needs to front up and explain how they were all for public purposes.
The ABC has analysed 3 years' worth of the minister's travel reports and found she travelled to the Gold Coast 20 times. That's more than Adelaide, Perth, Hobart and Launceston combined. The most expensive flight was a $12,000 charter trip from the Gold Coast to Broken Hill in 2015. On 14 of the trips, there's no public record documenting the purpose of her travel, and she's under no legal obligation to do so.
All of us meet with different individuals as part of our work as ministers and parliamentarians, and many of those individuals don't want those details of who they are to be made public.
The ABC's asked Ms Lee's office about the $54,000 worth of travel in question. It's responded with a statement saying Ms Lee's asked the Department of Finance to review all of her trips to the Gold Coast, but that won't satisfy the opposition. They want her to release her diaries and offer a public explanation. And if she won't, they want her sacked. Ashlyn McGee, ABC News, Canberra.
With a schedule of daily policy announcements since the new year, there's no doubt State Labor is already in election campaign mode. Whilst the Liberals say it shows the opposition is panicking, Labor says it's all about fresh ideas.
WA Labor has made a policy announcement every day since the start of the new year, and today was no exception, with Mark McGowan proposing 2 drug rehabilitation prisons if he wins the state election.
We need radical action to deal with methamphetamine, because what is currently happening now is not enough.
The acting Premier, Lisa Harvey, was also out, spruiking the Liberals' plan to double fines and jail time for people caught driving under the influence of alcohol or drugs with children in the car. She denied the government was on the back foot after Labor's series of election pledges in the past week.
I think Labor's approach has been frenetic and disorganised, and I think they're panicking, and they should be panicking.
Political analysts disagree. They say Labor's made the right call by starting to outline their policies early on, but the challenge will be keeping up the momentum until the March election.
They have a chance to win this election, and they have to be, I think, in the public's mind, putting forward a policy each day and, of course, making that relevant to marginal seats.
The government's been there too long. They've run out of ideas. WA Labor is fresh, we have ideas, we have a plan for the future. I think that's what the last week has shown.
Mrs Harvey says the government will start campaigning in earnest once it's in caretaker mode.
We have well-rounded policies that we'll be announcing. All of them have been appropriately costed. We know how we're going to deliver them because we've got the experience to do so.
The Premier returns from leave on Wednesday. Irina Saranik, ABC News.
They are the places to be seen in Perth, the pop-up bars and venues that originally promised to be around for only a short time. But now that's often not the case, and the peak body representing the hospitality industry in WA is fighting back as the pop-ups become more permanent.
Pop-up bars have been the hottest event this summer, attracting tens of thousands of people to drink under the sun or stars. The Hotels Association says it supports short-term setups for a particular festival, but it's drawing the line at venues that are hanging around for months.
When pop-up events turn into permanent, unregulated, not properly licensed permanent venues, we don't end up with a fair playing field with those bricks and mortar hospitality venues that have gone through years and years of regulation and cost.
The Metropolitan Redevelopment Authority manages the Urban Orchard in Northbridge, which for the last few years has hosted a pop-up bar over the summer. The private company Bar Pop runs live music concerts and hosts Christmas functions, but uses an event licence rather than a hotel or tavern licence. Established bar owners say the MRA has allowed the public space to become their biggest competition, which is impacting their ability to employ full-time staff.
We don't mind diversity and that sort of thing, but now it's become just an alternative space, replicating what's already available in the precinct and in the CBD.
The Fringe Festival is also bringing another raft of pop-ups to Northbridge from late January, and local traders are not happy.
They tend to have, tents set up or Spiegel tents set up with a pop-up bar and or food trucks supporting it. So a lot of the traders in Northbridge don't see a spin-off from it.
The pop-ups are also affecting hotels in the suburbs. The Embargo Container Bar had 40,000 visitors during its 6-week stint on the South Perth foreshore late last year. The local pub, The Windsor, felt the impact.
Councils bend over backwards for the pop-up bars in South Perth, and they don't seem to understand that it's adversely affecting the rest of the South Perth community. They don't pay land tax, they don't employ full-time staff, they don't pay any of the rates or the outgoings that we are currently paying.
The Hotels Association says there needs to be more transparency about the tender process for the coveted spaces, which are either by invitation or expression of interest. It's calling on the state government to reduce costs and red tape for established venues and tighten regulations for pop-ups.
We're going to be expecting action in 2017, particularly some announcements before the state election, or we're going to be looking to the opposition to address this issue far better.
Both Embargo and Bar Pop declined to comment. The MRA in the city of South Perth declined to be interviewed, but in statements said the pop-up venues increase the vibrancy and foot traffic of the areas. For the government's part, it's met with the AHA to discuss the concerns, but doesn't seem all that sympathetic and says businesses are encouraged to capitalise on the extra visitor numbers. Laura Gartrey, ABC News.
To a developing story now, and a car bomb has killed at least 12 people and wounded 50 others at a vegetable market in eastern Baghdad. The explosion hit the mainly Shiite district of Jamila. Violence has increased in Iraq in the past week with a series of attacks that's killed dozens of people. The Islamic State group, which is coming under increasing pressure from a US-backed offensive in the northern city of Mosul, has claimed responsibility for the bombing. To another market bombing, this time in Syria, where a powerful blast has ripped through a busy market area in the country's north, killing at least 48 people. Dozens were injured in the attack on the rebel-held stronghold of Azaz near the Turkish border. These pictures out of Syria are confronting and may distress some viewers. Middle East correspondent Sophie McNeil sent this report.
Panic and chaos moments after a massive blast in the heart of this border town. A fuel truck exploded in front of a courthouse in the middle of a busy market. Rescue workers searched for survivors among the